I know there's things you cannot tell me. But I also know there's a story here, and I think everybody will hear about it.
Do you think your paper has the resources to take that on?
I do.
Welcome to the Lion's Den!
Good afternoon. I'm Matthew Dolinar.
I'm Isaac Jager.
Today we are focusing on the 2015 movie Spotlight, concerning the Catholic Church's sex scandal in the 70s, when it was then brought to light in the Boston Globe in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I personally, I enjoyed the movie. It was entertaining. As far as movies go, though, I didn't find it, like, that high of quality.
Yeah, I too. I had a very positive view of the movie.
Yeah.
It wasn't, like, a spectacular,
Yeah.
I wasn't, like, blown away, like, wow, this is top 5 movies that I've seen.
Yeah. I appreciate in the movie how, like, it doesn't villainize, like, the Catholic Church, really. It points out that there's corruption kind of in any organization that size.
The facts drew us to the conclusion of that. It wasn't
Yeah.
like the narration
Right.
of the movie. They didn't claim that going in. It was very much like, this is what happened, let's run down
Yeah.
the situation. I would have liked to see a little bit more of the scandal itself. The movie never claimed to be that kind of movie. Very much so on the side of figuring out the truth. But I really do feel like the movie felt like it lacked dimensions because of that, and I feel like if they added more of the scandal, more of the personal, spiritual, emotional effects that it had on the victims, that it would have added more dimensions, would have given me a multi-layered film that I really could have walked away from and struggled with the different parts. It was a very easy film to digest, and
they didn't really, like, focus on, like, the personal, like, talking with the priest, where, like, there's the scene where Rachel McAdams is talking to the priest is saying, like, you know, he had no shame, and he was just like, yeah, like, I messed around with little boys, that's what we did at the time. And then they never returned on that, and, like, I wanted to know, like, more of, like, let's talk about why this was going on.
they wanted to bump themselves up to a B movie to an A movie.
Yeah.
They should have included something along those
Yeah.
lines. Another side that I wanted to see was there's a line in there where they talked to one of the victims, and he said that the priest to him when he was younger, he represented God himself. And he has this line in there, he says, like, how do you say no to God? And in there, he talks around him of his spiritual life. It's a very interesting psychological game there, because they never took shots at Catholicism itself, but I wish we could have seen a little bit more of the characters saying, like, yeah, I do have a very hard time distinguishing between that scandal and my true faith. Obviously, when you're dealing with a situation like this, that's something that's going to hit home for everybody because they're children, you know. But I would have liked to have more of a justification in the movie for Mark Ruffalo's character.
Right.
I wish we got to see a little bit more of him. He was very much oddly passionate about the case,
Right.
and I felt like a very like non-developed passion that he had.
Yeah, and, like, there's the whole thing. It was odd. His passion, I think, seemed even weirder because, like, Rachel McAdams and Michael Keaton didn't have the same passion working on the case. And so he was at, like, a 10 of, like, let's get these assholes. And then Rachel McAdams and Michael Keaton were kind of like, this is a great story, let's chase it. So then when Mark Ruffalo was, like, coming in and, like, yelling at me and, like, it could have been any of us, it's really weird because he's the only one on that level.
When he had his little outburst at the group, I was expecting it to be followed up with something like someone I knew was molested, or my whole family's been ingrained in the church, something like that, and that just never came.
There's the whole situation with Michael Keaton where, like, they had the list of 20 priests who, when he was the editor, when he first became editor, and I don't like how the movie, like, portrayed that whole situation because it was kind of confusing what exactly happened.
When they met with the lawyer and they said, hey, give us the names, and he said, hey, I gave you 20 names 5 years ago, all of a sudden Rachel McAdams and Michael Keaton were like, what do you mean you gave it? And it gave this impression that someone at the Globe was burying it.
Yeah.
And it felt very, you know, anticlimactic when all of a sudden at the end, Michael Keaton was like, hey, I totally forgot that they gave us that stuff because it didn't seem like a story at the time. And I put it away and it was gone. And it was like, oh, my bad, guys. Oh, that was a very casual way of losing that information.
Even when Rachel McAdams brought the clipping to Michael Keaton, even then, when the clipping was handed to him, it still was like he had no clue what this was. So there was even a scene in there with Rachel McAdams and John Slattery, and it was kind of like John Slattery was being a little suspicious, and it was weird because then it made me feel like, oh, it must have been him, but then we found out it wasn't at all. So it was confusing why they put this scene in there.
The way the movie's done is it's a scandal movie.
Right.
And there are people hiding, trying to save their own asses. And from that, I was expecting, from that tone, that somebody in the paper that itself was involved in that.
Right.
Alright, so we talked about the parts of the movie that we felt were lacking, but let's look at the reality of it. What was the movie actually? And as we both said, it left a positive impression on us. So what about the movie did you in particular like?
Yeah, so like this whole situation of like researching and uncovering what exactly happened, it's not the most like glamorous thing to watch. You know, there's no car chases and no gunfights or anything like that. But I do think they do a really great job of making it very entertaining to watch.
The pacing was well done. I like the fact that it only took about 15-20 minutes of exposition to get into the rest of the movie. They kept the movie at a good 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I was saying in my head, I was like, yeah, I get it, you know, I'm starting to see a common theme, you know, screw these guys. But it never got to the point where I was like, oh, guys, okay, I get it, you know, let's finish up this movie. I also thought, I know we kind of griped about the individual characters and stuff, but I liked the actors' performances.
Yeah.
Mark Ruffalo, Rachel McAdams, Michael Keaton, they're A-list actors. It was a good performance, and I think that it was more the script's fault for the lackings in the individual characters than it was the actors. Alright, so Isaac, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate this movie?
I would give this movie a 6 out of 10, and I do think everybody should see it just to be more educated on what exactly happened.
So, based on that, yeah, I don't think it's going to be in my greatest hits, but I do think that the importance of the message outweighed the quality. So it's kind of a funny little dynamic, especially if you are a Catholic or belong to an institutionalized religion. Just that examination, that accountability that this movie provided.
Yeah.
Give it a 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
So, that right there from our channel, that's a 6.5 out of 10. Would recommend watching. Thanks, guys. See you next week.